Next reason, it's a failure of electric equipment. It's more about 16%, and it's one of the most reasons of fires and explosions at the premises, so at home, at residential buildings, offices, industrial premises, etc. Next, bad preparation of equipment for repair. It's 13%. Self-ignition of materials. As we know, there are a lot of type and kind of spheres of industrial premises and residential premises, companies, and some of them has some explosive flammable materials. Next, wear and corrosion of equipment. It's some technical reason, especially on industrial premises and areas. It's more about 8% from generally fires and explosions. Next, constructive defects of equipment, 7%, and welding works, it's more about 4%. And what you should know about fire too. It's classification of fire in origin. It's emergency situation, one of the type of emergency situation. So it's can be technogenic and natural too. So it can natural fires and technogenic fires too. And some information about mechanism of fire and explosion occurrence. Combustible substances can be solid, liquid, and gaseous substances. And here one of the main parameter will be oxidizer. Oxidizer is most often air oxygen. Not in production conditions, they can be fluorine, nitrogenic oxide, and other substances. The content of combustion products depend on combustible substance and oxidizer. The ratio of the combustible substance to oxidizer were none of the components in excess, and it's called stoichiometric 1. Sources of ignition can be different. It can be open flame, overheated and heated surfaces, sparks, electrical equipment, damaged power lines, some electrical parts of equipment, networks, bolts of static and atmospheric electricity, and any other sources whose energy is sufficient for reaction of combustion. And here you see the examples of fires, some technogenic and natural fires. So natural fires also classified as desert, mountain, and peat fires. And peat fires cannot be met at our territory at Kazakhstan. It can be met in Russia and in other countries, but not at our country. At our country can be met the type of mountain and desert fires, and a lot of kind of technogenic fires depending from the sphere of this industry or company. A special case of fire occurrence is self-ignition of substances. The causes of self-ignition can be microbiological oxidation, thermal oxidation, chemical oxidation in case of interaction with air or one substance with another, some chemical reactions, and some characteristics of fire and explosion hazard of materials and substances. According to the combustibility, all substances and materials divided in next groups, types: incombustible, low combustible, and combustible. So, incombustible, it's substance and materials that are not able to burn in the air. Low combustible, it's substance and materials that are able to ignite in air from the source of ignition, but are not able to ignite independently after removal of the source of ignition. It's low combustible. And combustible, it's substance and materials that are able to ignite from the source of ignition, self-ignite, and continue independent burning. Here you see some examples, some sources of fire. At forest fire. In previous picture you saw as peat desert fires example, and some technogenic fire on the buildings, and as a source of fire you can see all electrical equipment short spark short circuit. And what about the protection from fire, and what about fire safety? In your diploma work you will have a chapter on occupational health and ecological safety, and one of the question will be fire safety on your company, and it's very important part. That's why you should know all information about technical meanings and organizational meanings of protection and prevention from fire, and what include fire safety.